Okay, recording has started. So I'm going to share my screen, and I do have a quick screen to share. You guys should all see meeting minutes on my screen. If you don't, let me know.
We got it.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so welcome to all the new attendees. We've got a lot of people here today, so I'm super happy to see the attentiveness to our meetings. We have 44 people here. I don't have time probably to go through and introduce everybody that's new or welcome, but feel free to ask in the chat if you have questions. Please don't necessarily have side conversations in the chat. If you have something to ask or to discuss, please don't hesitate to bring it up. And Wings credit is offered for this meeting today. So if you have not registered with this meeting with your faasafety.gov email address, you can put your email address in the chat and we'll get your Wings credit following the meeting. Give me a couple days though to get it done, as it does take a little bit of time. Let's see. We do have a Facebook page as well. So AFTW, go to Facebook, search AZFTW, and you'll see it. And there's also the safety topic of the month is also hosted on our website, which comes from the GAJSC, and some content on there from the GAJSC that instructors could utilize or pilots alike for extra training. So we also have a YouTube channel where we throw up all of our meeting minutes. So I think that is all pretty much the opening content, unless anybody has any things to kick off with. I'll go ahead and start moving into our general agenda. We typically go through just updates on any local events, some website changes, airports, airspace, and any other comments or questions. So I'll go ahead and get started. I don't necessarily have any pre-planned local events that I was made aware of. Does anybody have anything they would like to share as far as upcoming local events? One of the events that I'll bring up is the one that you see on screen was brought up last meeting, and just highlight that that's coming up. I think it starts on the 14th, if I'm not mistaken, or is it tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow, actually, the 13th through the 20-something of this month. There is a community engagement with the FAA. They're looking for feedback from the public on their FAA airspace modernization project for the Phoenix airspace. So they have different meetings. If you click this link, actually, I'll just throw it in the chat here. But if you go to this site, you'll see if you scroll down, there is a list of meetings, and you can register for those. Those meetings are specific to different segments of the Phoenix metro area. So please feel free to join the one that's applicable to you. Hang on, as I get this in the chat. Alex, I see your hand is raised. You have a question, buddy?
Yeah, so May 27th at 4 p.m. local will be the Mesa Gateway Pilot Controller Forum. It's just over at the Gateway Administration Building. Hopefully the spans will come out in a couple of days.
I'm sorry, that was May what?
May 27th. It's a Wednesday, and it's from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay. That's the RSAT meeting at Gateway.
That's a pilot controller.
Pilot controller.
I think the RSAT, I think, is the RSAT's June 11th at 1 p.m.
Sorry, June 11th, you said?
Yes, sir. At 1 p.m.
Thank you. Anybody else have any updates for local events coming up? I believe, I'm not sure if he's here. I have it down here on airports, but Tim, are you in the call? Tim Mitchell?
Yes, I am.
Sweet. Do you want to share your update on information about your glider activity?
Yeah, if you want me to do it now, I can.
Yeah, go ahead and take
It's
the screen and you can share that.
okay. Yeah, all right. 1 second. I cannot share a screen while other participant is sharing.
Oh, stand by here. I'll use my sharing. Oh, try it now.
Right. How's it working? You able to see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, great. Hey, everybody, I'm Tim Mitchell. I'm the safety officer for Tucson Soaring Club down at El Tiro. If you don't know where El Tiro is, it is southwest of Pinal Air Park, about 5 miles, and due west of Marana, about 7 miles. And so we're the little glider port that sits there out in the flats. Just, I'm going to speak quickly. The main reason I'm here is just to go, hey, that we're actually here. And then we'll talk about, we're doing a very large contest the week of May 23rd to the 29th with over 40 gliders. So approximately 45 aircraft will be flying in the area and then bouncing around all over Southern Arizona. Give an example of that and then talk about what we do. So what we're a nonprofit glider club that operates out of El Tiro. We got 9 gliders, 2 tow planes, and about 30, right now, 35 to 40 private ships that are on the airfield. We operate every weekend. So Fridays from noon to 5 and really till sunset. And then Saturday and Sundays, we have ops all morning and all the way to the afternoon. Some Fridays we do operate in the mornings. It just depends on what our training load for our students are. And we do offer many, many things midweek. You can see there's a picture on the right. That's what it looks like towing. And that is directly over right south of our airfield, about 1,000 AGL as we're turning in. And I'll show you what the picture of the tow pattern looks like. So here's El Tiro. It's an old World War II ox field. You can see it's in the triangle between Pinal Air Park and Marana. We got 5 runways. We do have a unpublished monitor frequency of 123.5. So if you're in the area and want to talk to us, please call us there. We have glider ops on the weekend of say, but we also have other operations. We have parachute ops 3 to 4 times a year from Skydive Marana Tactical out of Marana and other operators. USAFA comes down with fly their gliders 3 to 4 times a year. Also do a lot of turbine and jet landing certification as our dirt field and up to the size of C-130s on our airfield. If you looked at the ground, there were the 5 runways out in the really nice looking dirt runways with all the glider trailers. That's us out in the middle of the desert. So primarily why we're here, I'm talking is we have a tow pattern up to about 3 miles south of our field up to 3,000 feet AGL. That's just where our tow planes are towing. That's not where the gliders are concentrating. They drop off the tow and then they climb in a thermal and then they'll bounce pretty much all over southern Arizona. Altitudes, this last week we had guys flying at 17.5 in convergence. So not a factor for most of the guys in this room, but it is a factor for it. Most guys do have IFF, so Squawk 1202, and majority have ADS-B in and out. At the moment, why I'm asking, keep your head on a swivel and you're flying the area. All of our tow planes right now are not ADS-B, don't have ADS-B, and a lot of our club gliders don't. Within 12 months, we will. It's been funded by the club, so we'll have those installed. It's just as our mechanic can work through our systems. So we are having a very large contest. So the week of 23 May to 29 May, I don't recommend flying over the top of El Tiro between around 11 a.m. local and around 1 p.m. Just because there's going to be over 40 gliders and 3 to 4 tow planes flying in the airspace. It's day VFR. We're going to be bouncing all over the state, and I'll show you some example tasks here in a second. So the red circle is where we take off. We launch. We're going to have 40 gliders launching with about an hour and a half. We send a sniffer motor glider out first, and then he will tell the lift is good enough for us to fly. And then we start the task. It's been described by air traffic control. It's a slow moving thunderstorm. And so that's how if you get vectors around us, if you're doing IFR training, that's probably what it's for. They're going to give vectors around. Albuquerque Center's been notified, Tucson, Tracon, Phoenix, and then all the military airspace is going to get a task example every day for this. So here's kind of what it looks like. You can see most of the time the gliders will get above 10,000 feet, so it should not be a factor for y'all if you're staying below. But here's like a example task that we flew this week, and then you can see it's just a roving mass of gliders as they're doing the actual route for the contest. Here's a couple more, just showing the general areas that we can kind of fly. Up to 300 miles for the flights. You can see we are bouncing through the corridor, but as we're flying up and down the I-10 area, typically we're a lot higher. The primary risk to interacting with your pilots is really pretty much south of Picacho Peak, and then in between there and Ryan. That's wherever the guys are working to get above 10,000 feet to really start their task as they go for the day. Here's another example. We're all the way to edge of New Mexico for one of them. So really the tasks just depend on what the weather forecast is for the day. If a really good day, we'll have long flights. If it's not a crappy day, then we're going to be just bouncing around El Tiro like what this example shows here. So again, lots of aircraft. Here's an example. We took one of our guys as a Southwest pilot, got this sent a text to us. You can see we'll show up on your ADS-B track as kind of a mass. But again, you don't recommend flying over the top of us without really getting a good eye because we're climbing on a good day. We're climbing at 1,000 feet per minute, circling up in a thermal. So if you see a mass of pilots, I recommend avoiding laterally. Again, kind of what we looks like. So we do issue a NOTAM for this. We issue a NOTAM every weekend when we fly. So you will see that typically on ForeFlight, and you'll see it on the NOTAM list as an Albuquerque Center NOTAM. For our contest, if you want to brief your instructors or have the information, if you take a picture use this email distro list at the lower right of your screen, I will send you an email every day of the contest that goes to all the airspace, Tracon, Albuquerque Center. It's what our launch window is, the route of flight, what the expected top of lift is, and then the safety point of contact, which will be myself or one of my other on my safety team, and then a graphic of what our expected route is, and then what we did the previous day, and then finally a live tracker on a link. If you need more data, you can do the list, and also just email me here at my email address. It'll be again at the later part of the brief. Safety concerns for us. If you're local to the area, just be aware, brief your students that we are active on the weekends. Please, if you have a transient aircraft, they're the ones that seem to be popping through the airspace the most while we're doing glider ops. That's why we issue the NOTAM, and we do look outside, and that's why we're going to have ADS-B here for 100% of our gliders here soon. We have a lot of GA traffic that kind of goes to the tow pattern. We keep our eyes out to warn people if we see them. But again, when we're on tow, the tow pilots are looking, but they're typically they don't have ADS-B, even an iPad or anything that they're looking at. We'll have out, but we really don't have in while we're flying on tow. This is what my worry is. Here's a picture of, it's a website that shows all of the ADS-B interactions in the local area. It's adsbhotspot.com. I have a list later. You can see on the left, this is every time that we've had less than 3/10 of a nautical mile and 400-foot separation in the with the 10-mile ring of El Tiro. But if you look on the right, this is parsed data this is all of the GA aircraft or all other aircraft interacting with the glider. So we had 31 events in the last 9 months. A lot of you can look at the track, you'll see they kind of see each other and turn, but we have some that don't. And then 65% of our encounters between the gliders and the aircraft is in the data on the right are from flight school aircraft, either from the Ryan area, Marana, or up in the Phoenix area. And if you want links to this, I have it shown here later for it. Online sources. I'll have these. I'm going to give this. I'll email this slideshow to the presenter so you can put it on. Have the link, and then just other online information that you want. This airbornehotspots.org is where they were able to parse the ADSB data for us. All right, that's fast and dirty. What questions do you guys have?
Brian, go ahead.
Mike, Brian Eckenrode at Tucson Approach Control. Been a controller here for 17 years, and I appreciate you doing this and the outreach, making everybody aware. I just wanted to double up with you as far as the safety side. Please, anybody flying through the area, the flight school's coming down, anybody out, don't hesitate to call us. We are able to see the majority of the gliders that are up. We do get the daily sheets when they do this part tasking. So we'll know for the day where they're going, and we'll do our best to keep you guys away from it. And that's why we're here. We're here to just be an extra set of eyes. So don't hesitate to call us. And then as far as your increased encounters with aircraft in the flight schools, I feel like part of the problem, and that's part of the reason I'm on today, is we were made aware that in the last AFTW meeting that concerns were brought up with jump activity in the area. I feel like you're getting a bunch of people that are pushing further and further south as the military is expanding operations around Pinell in particular, which is going to increase the issues that you guys have with aircraft flying through that area. As you guys know, that NOTAM is pretty vague. So it's left a lot of people guessing. So I guess the big thing is call us at the facility. The jumpers are required to provide us notification. We have no say on what they really do, but we will be aware of what's going on in the area, especially with the gliders being up and the jump activity is still going on. That triangle up there is a bit of a trap.
Well, I think, Gary, you got your hand raised too.
Yeah. Tim, I would like you to present this at the Arizona Aviation Safety Advisory Group meeting that's next Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And I put the community representatives up at the top of the meeting. So I have a portion up there where I put Fairfax O'Reilly to talk about glider ops, and I'll put you right next to Fairfax. All right. Because this information, particularly if you're going statewide, needs to go out statewide. And I get Brian Eckenrod's been on the meeting with us talking about these issues, as well as the jump issues that we've got going up and down the I-10 corridor there. And we get P50 on the meetings as well. So it gets a lot of visibility, and that's what we need to do with this information.
Perfect. Thank you. That's why I'm here. I do outreach to the military working group so far, and I'm trying to work my way into everybody across the state. So
cool. Yeah, thanks for that. And if you, do shoot me that email of this deck if you would, and we could post it on AFTW's website if that's okay with you.
I will. Yes.
Okay.
So Tim, I've got, you said are you getting flight following? Because Brian said he sees you on the radar, but do you guys get flight following during your cross countries?
No. The task we really don't, because the task loading for the pilots is typically somebody's on. I'm getting it. Right. Task load for the pilots is pretty much high enough that they are not talking to folks. Now, a lot of the guys as a technique will carry a separate radio and transceiver, and I will listen to Tucson Tracon to see if they're talking about me, because I can infer where they're at. But we don't have the two radios. We can't monitor two frequencies. And then when they're actually racing as a mass, they're not thinking about talking to anybody. They'll fly in the MOAs and they're not going to notify Albuquerque. That's why we're doing the outreach of letting everybody know that, hey, we're here. Now for the contest, 99% of the gliders will have ADSB out. I think there's a couple that aren't, but they're all going to be bunched together as a group. I mean, you should see them fly as a pretty big mass, as you saw here, the picture. This is a picture of navigational display on a 737. That's kind of what we're going to look at. See, that's what we're going to look like on your ADSB if you are using it.
All right. My other question was, if you are with Tucson Approach or they're talking to, what about if you get up north of Picacho and you're in the south practice areas there? Would there be any way for the training airplanes to know that you're in the vicinity other than looking at the ADSB?
Not really. It's I mean, it's we, as part of the contest in brief, all of the training areas, the stack is briefed to avoid. I brief them all the way areas to avoid. The arrival corridor into Phoenix is briefed, but I don't expect this contest to go as far north as a couple of the tasks did last year, because this is a regional contest and the gliders are lower performance than last year's. So I'm expecting to be a little bit closer to El Tiro. But like I said, I brief the areas to avoid. Here are the high risk areas. Here are the parajump operations. Here's the stack to stay away from. And then kind of all the avoids. And then the contest directors are building the routes. They're very aware of all the airspace, and so they're trying to keep the routes safe, but still doable, avoiding things.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, Chris, thanks. I'll take back the screen now.
Cool. Let me end.
Okay. All right, so we're back to the meeting notes. Any other local event type information anybody wants to share? There is our AFTW website I already talked about. If you're new, that is where you'll find the KML overlays that you can download and put on ForeFlight that show the practice areas and where we operate, some reporting features and things like that. So please check that out. There's some videos and tutorials up there if you have never done that before.
Latest download is November 2025, not 2024.
Okay. I'll try and make that change with the edit here after the meeting. And then we still have a point of contact. Basically, all the flight schools are trying to get point of contacts at them. So if you can help us fill this out, that'd be great. So we can share critical information when it comes available. So if you don't believe if your flight school is not getting contacts from AFTW, please email the AFTW with your contact information. We can add you to that. And we do have a briefing flyer that we'd like everybody to share as well, that you can find on our website. Okay, some updates on airports. Falcon Field did pass, or City of Mesa, I should say, did pass the vote commissioning landing fees at Falcon Field. So please expect a lot of Falcon Field traffic to offload to surrounding airports. This will create a big traffic congestion risk. You'll see an increased traffic of aircraft moving in and out of Falcon Airfield to, you got that Chandler departure and arrival corridor that goes kind of over the top of Chandler, and you'll see more traffic going east around Gateway or maybe into the north practice areas. They were supposed to start landing fees May 1st. However, the city sent out an email saying they're still looking for a vendor to get set up. And so that vendor is going to be doing their fee administration, and this is expected somewhere around or before July 30th. So they will send out a message indicating an actual date when they get closer to that time frame. Expect that Gateway, Chandler, Coolidge, Casa Grande, Achin, Eloy, Marana, and Pinal are probably also going to be picking up traffic. So just be cautious of that. I know that there's a couple other things on here that were left over from meeting minutes last month. I don't know, or last time we met. Don't know if there's any updates on any of these, or any of these not applicable anymore. I know Gateway still has construction, I believe, or is that completed? Does anybody from Gateway have information on construction there?
No, it's going to continue all the way till the shutdown and then the start of golf on July.
Okay.
And that'll be 6 months long. So we're not looking until 2027.
Okay. Anybody have information on Ryan's practice approaches? Is that still the case there?
Yeah, that's still the case, and it's going to be the case probably indefinitely.
Okay. And then
Reference Ryan. This is Brian at Tucson Tracon.
Okay.
Sorry. Davis Mothin, it's not a guarantee, traffic dependent, but if you guys are coming down, they have told us that if they're not busy, that we can do the ILS. If Tucson happens to be on 30 and you guys need an ILS, they are going to allow ILS approaches to be flown, but only to an altitude restricted low approach. You can't touch pavement, but it'll be a case by case thing. But I've had aircraft that have been able to do the ILS to 3-1 at DM, just as an option. I know Ryan shutting down the approaches has really limited your training down this way, but I just wanted to let you guys know that is being talked about and has been done as an option for your training.
Okay. All right.
Are they just one for us to contact you and ask for the approach, or they want pre-approval?
No, just contact us and ask us for the ILS if you guys are down this way. I have not had them tell me that people need a PPR to do it. Their traffic since the A10s are going away has been way down, so they're looking for kind of any training traffic they can get since they're a training tower. So I'd say try it until they tell us no.
Okay. Carrie, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I got a couple things. First, back to the overlays for Stacy.
Sure.
Can we get an overlay that is all of the practice areas instead of individual .kml files? There was a request from Buckeye to be able to produce a new map, and we had the old one that had the old Lufthansa frequencies way out to the west, but we don't have a current one.
The one that's up there now should be an all-encompassing. We were getting away from individuals. It should be all-encompassing.
Okay. We used to have one that it wasn't necessarily .kml, but it was a PDF.
Oh, yeah, I don't do PDFs. We got away from that also.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell them that there isn't one available. All
right.
right.
String captures.
Yeah.
They can make it post it.
Right. The other thing, Brent, the House Bill 2211
yes,
is probably going to be voted on in the Senate side of things coming up this week. It's probably going to be voted on along party lines, which pretty much guarantees when it goes up to the governor, it will probably be vetoed. We've had some real strong opposition from the Arizona Airports Association that has come out against the bill. They feel they have the right to use ADSB to assess landing fees. Of course, they would feel that way. And talking to the ex-president of the Arizona Airports Association, he was not at all sympathetic to our cause. So don't expect any support from the airports, which I find they're really pitting the airports against the pilots, and this is not a good situation.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that update. Anything else?
We're trying. We'll keep working.
All right, thanks. Appreciate the update. Anybody else have any airport-related updates? Okay, moving on to new business, and one of the larger things I wanted to discuss with this group today. Run you guys through this. So try and do this quickly. I know there's a bit of information here. Just bring everybody up to speed. We've been working with Albuquerque Center, there's a couple of us that have been working with a kind of a smaller work group to try and come up with solutions and ideas. But let me walk you through what's currently going on. If you're unfamiliar with the stack at Stanfield VOR, there's people holding every 500 feet or so, stacking up at the VOR to do simulated instrument approaches into Casa Grande. I'm going to assume on this call that most people here are pretty familiar. If you're not, go check out the Stanfield stack procedure that is on AFTW's website. If you go to the practice areas, you'll see, the practice approach procedures link, you'll find it there. But the problem is that IFR aircraft, through letter of agreements with Phoenix Tracon, they'll arrive, basically be instructed by Phoenix Tracon or Albuquerque Center. They'll transition the VOR at 7,000 northbound or 5,000 feet for the approach into Casa Grande. And when they do clear an aircraft for 5,000 foot cleared for the approach, they basically own that airspace below 5,000 to the airport for IFR approaches. And the next IFR aircraft can't come in until that aircraft has completed their approach. Albuquerque has informed us that they have aircraft that seem to drop into the stack at a rate of about 1 every 90 to 120 minutes, which does create some unsafe conditions for these IFR aircraft just being injected into this very busy hive of VFR traffic. It's not a new problem. We've known this for years. We've been trying to work through it. But we feel like with the traffic density increasing, the amount of training out there increasing, that if we don't find a solution that seems to work a little better, we could have a midair in the future. So we're trying to avoid that. Albuquerque has basically approached our community asking, hey, can we find a workable solution for everybody? And they were looking to publish a letter to airmen just highlighting the problem and raise the awareness of the Stanfield stack in general with the piloting community. And that's what kind of launched this look at, is there a better way we can maybe solve this problem? So currently we solve this through just basic aircraft in the stack, see other aircraft that are not participating, not communicating, just basically fly through the stack. And you kind of have to take your own evasive action, maneuver out of the stack, allow the aircraft to, get ahead of you or whatever. And it's see and avoid, basically. You see a conflict, you just avoid it and do your best to, get back into the flow of traffic once they're clear. Unfamiliar IFR pilots contend with a barrage of traffic targets. I remember flying IFR into the stack one time, like 15 years ago, and it was like trying to get into a hornet's nest. And so it's definitely a challenge. But if you're trying to balance IFR procedures with VFR stack procedures, you sometimes end up with pilot deviations from pilots who get handed off, maintain 5,000 cleared for the approach, and then they call up top of stack's at 7, so they climb up to 7, which violates their IFR clearance. So they have a hard time balancing the IFR procedures with VFR procedures and trying to maintain separation. Pilots in the stack also sometimes are forced out due to, like I said, other non-participating aircraft coming in. So future mitigation, obviously the best solution here is if we got everybody on the same call, same frequency, all working together. If we had ATC services for all aircraft that were shooting practice approaches, probably the best idea. But this is 5 to 10 years out because we need to increase radar infrastructure, obviously controllers, some revised LOAs between ATC facilities. And so that's distant. Maybe we'll get there someday, but we're still working there. So how do we mitigate the risk of collisions in the meantime? We've gathered some ideas from the community. We'd love to brief you on these. And then between this meeting and next meeting, I'd like everybody to discuss this, talk with your own instructors, and figure out, what does everybody think might be some other ideas or the best solution of these examples. So maybe next AFTW meeting, we can maybe have like a little poll, share some new ideas, and determine maybe a best foot forward. So I'm going to go through each of these one by one, and we'll talk through them. So I do also want to highlight that when we had Stanfield stack procedures first developed back in, 2000 timeframe, this was back before TAS or TIS, I think, had just come on the market. Traffic systems didn't really exist back then. So we were trying to come up with a procedure where you didn't have traffic information at your fingertips and you weren't able to work with air traffic control. So now that we have this new technology of ADS-B, we might have a better ideas that we can lean on and maybe reshape how we do Stanfield stack. So let's go through them. The first one, no change. Basically, we're doing see and avoid what is done today. If you see aircraft out there flying through the stack, you get out of their way. Obviously, the risks here is what's being presented so far with the potential mid-air collisions and just chaos between IFR and VFR aircraft trying to share some of the same airspace and work in two different regimes of flight. The benefit of this, if we stick with it, is just we have no change and we just keep doing what we're doing today. But again, I think with the increasing traffic, we have a risk there. So moving on to solution B. This is where 5,000 and 7,000 are reserved altitudes for Albuquerque Center's IFR aircraft injection. So basically, those altitudes 5 and 7, we wouldn't hold at those altitudes. That would be where we would expect IFR aircraft to be flying through the stack or being added into the stack that can start their instrument approach from that altitude. If you were in the stack, you'd be, let's say, at 6.5 for an example, and you're holding, and let's say somebody comes in at 5, you would just work with them, working down through the stack. If you needed to drop down through one of these altitudes, you drop down on the outbound leg to try and prevent any sort of conflict on the inbound leg. You can see I've listed some of the cons here. This is a pretty easy change to the way we've been doing things, but the problem is the stack's going to get much higher or unachievable, and we're going to have a less amount of traffic that'll be able to utilize the stack. Probably only 3 aircraft at a time could probably use the stack because you're going to get to higher altitudes where we won't be able to climb, especially in the summer months. And of course, there's also a potential that instructors start abusing this by faking IFR arrivals into 5,000 and 7,000 foot slots and causing just congestion and issues with Albuquerque. This is what that looks like. Basically, there's slightly different alternative. I put it right here. Another alternative is that basically we all IFR altitudes are for IFR aircraft and all VFR altitudes for VFR aircraft. So the plus 500s are the altitudes we would hold at, and these become IFR only. Although 6,000 could be debatable that we could throw some stand-field stack traffic in there VFR. But that's solution B. Solution C is line up on the inbound course. Instead of stacking up over the VOR, we just get in line on the inbound course, and the alternative could be an offset from that inbound course. You'll see why, because one of the cons of this is that there's a mountain out there that if you line up on the inbound course and you're about 10 miles out, you can end up hitting a mountain peak out there called Flyer Peak. And so this also could maybe mean you have to trek a little further south to kind of get in line. It is a bit of a significant change where you're getting in line versus stacking vertically, but that gets a benefit to us because it leaves the higher stack altitudes unobstructed, so IFR aircraft can utilize those and drop down in a stack. We've seen getting in line options work over at Coolidge, so we're trying to see if that might work here as well. And we think this could also reduce the required comms, because what we could do is the last aircraft in the line just basically calls, hey, I'm 8 nautical mile final for the VOR, and the person who's last in line just makes calls saying that they're the last person until the next person gets behind them. Then they become the call person, just pointing out where the end of the line is. So it might decongest some of the frequency as well. But this is what we're basically talking about here, and here's the risk that I was talking about with Flyer Peak. To try and mitigate that Flyer Peak, it was also suggested maybe we hold on on this radial here, Victor 95, maybe start the line at Potter intersection. But we do have IFR traffic coming through there at Potter intersection from Albuquerque, then headed into Phoenix. So there could be some other traffic just to be aware of, but that could be an alternative. The solution D is a Victor 105 loop. So instead of lining up on the inbound course and getting close to that mountain, what if we try to line up and just basically fly a big circle? And we can be able to shoot instrument approaches back, standing in line from back to back from each other. Let me show you the picture of this first. I'll come back to that slide in just a second. So on Victor 5, we would basically line up, and we also were trying to find a solution where we didn't actually have to get in the stack. And the idea was we could fly down Victor 105, you load your instrument approach like normal, but as you get closer to the VOR, you could give your student a fly direct Roxy clear for the approach, and that would basically negate you having to actually fly through the VOR or where some non-participating traffic could be. and would also give the ability to kind of intercept the final approach course, give you better visibility, and keep you out of the mix of the VOR. So then you would, fly your final, go missed, fly back down like the I-10, get back in line, and you can just we'd have basically like a big holding pattern here for practice instrument approaches. One of the challenges to this, though, is that, what if you're doing the missed approach and you want to go back to the VOR? What if you don't want to have vectors to final and you want your student to practice a hold first? We could have the hold also alternatively come out and intercept here. So you're flying the inbound fix and maybe there's a hold there. But again, we only stack up when it's absolutely necessary, and you try and keep the stack minimally as far as altitude. So I'll jump back here, just the pros and cons of that. The cons I'll talk about, like I said, significant change of what we're doing today. May have two patterns that may have to sync at Roxy, but I think you'd have better visibility to see each other there as you approach the intersection because of the angles of approach. It does take some airspace out of the practice areas, though, so that loop is cutting into the practice areas, so that could be an issue. You'll see we try to address that in a later one. Later option, and then there is the overflight of A39 if that pattern's followed. So that's solution D. This is what it looks like from like a Google Earth perspective, and you're flying into Casa Grande here on final, going down the I-10 back up towards Bapchil, getting back in line, flying down Victor 105 for the short loop. If you're doing a long loop, coming out and getting in line. So again, an option. Solution E is we're holding south of radio 170 at some DME. And the reason we're holding south is because Albuquerque stated that on their radar scopes, the area south of the VOR is basically a ghost town most of the time. There's not a lot of traffic out there, and it'd be great to utilize that more. So what we thought about doing is, what if we relocated the holding stack south, and we put the stack down here so that IFR aircrafts utilize the front stack. And we kind of worked on this theory a little bit better because we were trying to figure out how to mingle these two stacks together. And basically, it's almost like a straight-in approach. We kind of get in line on this inbound fix here. We kind of form a line, and if you needed a hold, if the line got too long, you'd stack up here at the holding fix. And so there would be a holding stack here for holds. And then after you get to the bottom of the hold, let's say 4,500, you'd fly inbound to Stanfield, verifying that things are clear, getting into the mix. You could do a no procedure turn and just fly your final if there's nobody else in problem. Or if you needed to, or there was traffic like in the hold where you inbound, there you needed to deconflict from, you could enter the hold, do a procedure turn, and fly inbound. But that would allow aircraft to jump in at 5,000. That would then descend in a stack, and we could all shoot the approach that way. So that was another option. This one was a good suggestion from Albuquerque on a potential solution. I'll jump back up here to the slide about the pros and cons so you guys can read through that real quick. The other thing about this is that Albuquerque stated they could add the holding fix to the charts, but it would take time. So one of the feedback was that, well, we can't really use this for flying on like check rides or something like that, but we do have the option of adding fixes and radials and things, initial approach fixes to the chart. It just would take about a year to a year and a half to get those added. Okay, I'll go to the next slide, solution F. This is you saw the north circular route using Victor 105. This is an idea trying to utilize that unused south portion of the airspace and try and find a circular route option down there. And so what this looks like, basically flying to the little Totec mountain down here. Totec intersection is over here, but there's a little mountain just south of Interstate 8 I-10 intersection, pretty easily recognizable. You'd fly south to that point and then fly kind of just north of Lake St. Clair and then turn to get in line on a final approach fix. So it would try and deconflict from Flyer Peak and also keep us clear of the original stack. But again, we'd fly, 4 or 5 altitude until established on the inbound fix. And so that is a south circular route option. I'll come back to this slide here so you can see pros and cons that have been suggested so far. Again, just slightly farther south of a flight from Phoenix, but any descents to try and mitigate the risk of mid-air collision on the inbound course, any descents if there's aircraft maybe doing the missed approach and coming into the hole, they would only descend if there was space for them, and a descent on the outbound legs that were not colliding. So everybody should be joining this final approach at the same altitude. So it does permit a bit of a join there. Oops. This is what that looks like on Google Earth. So you got Casa Grande just on the corner here, flying back down towards Totec Mountain, as I'll call it, then over towards Lake St. Clair, and then kind of wrapping around and getting back in line. This is kind of looking to the west-southwest. Okay, so again, there's that option, and that's the last option that we have proposed and worked out. So with that said, I'll go to a summary slide here and just open it up for any initial comments anybody has. Anything you want to see further or discuss further? Lee, go ahead. I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you. Yes, Timon is here from Albuquerque Center. I don't know if there's other representatives from Albuquerque here. And I thank him for coming.
Yes.
And hope that he has some input.
So
sorry,
Lee,
go
ahead.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Lee, you were looking for input from me from Albuquerque?
Yes, if you had any comments, I wanted to thank you for coming and for all your work on this.
Well, no, thank you, and thank Brent for putting this all together. This is above and beyond my expectations, and giving us everybody kind of great options to visually look at and hopefully to come to a consensus on. From Zab's perspective, I'm kind of hesitant on that north loop because it really does send a lot of aircraft into just generally more congestion overall, up by Auction and kind of into the Phoenix terminal area. There's just so much climbing and descending of VFR aircraft as it kind of try to get under the Bravo and around it to the west of Casa Grande.
Yeah.
And then the kind of do as we're doing now is, I really think it's a high risk situation, honestly. And we're putting a lot of airplanes in rather unsafe situations, and everyone kind of feels like they has their hands tied, from, I think, the instructors to the controllers on our end. So I'd really like to see us work towards something else. I do like the south of Stanfield holding idea, or the big loop to the south, or the inline stuff. All seems like better options than we have now. And I kind of don't want to make like indecisiveness a decision, if you will. I'd like to see us try something else, and if that doesn't work, we can always, adapt it a little bit or change to another option. But I think a change is kind of necessary before we have a really bad situation unfold.
Thank you, and thanks,
If
Brian.
you could go back into the lead-in slide with all the 5 options.
Yeah.
Other than A, which we're all trying to improve, I see B as the only one that doesn't have a lot of balls in the air. There's so many changes and processes with Charlie, Delta Echo, and Foxtrot, where the only change in Bravo is VFR doesn't use 5 and doesn't use 7. We'll skip from 5.5 to 4.5. We just don't occupy it. The only issue is passing through that level, that 5 and that 7. But given all of the other plans, I really only see, for me, Bravo.
Cool.
And I
Jim?
know that was the first plan that I rejected. I got it. I know. But after seeing that there's really no other alternative other than A, Bravo's the least monkeys being monkeyed around with.
Sure. Jim, you have your hand up too.
Brent, thank you for putting this together. You're awesome. This has been an issue since the beginning, and it's just become, worse and worse with the increase in traffic in recent years. So thank you. And I have a couple comments, just food for thought. But first, a question. If we went with option B, what does that mean for the IFR aircraft? Like if Albuquerque can bring them into what is known as the stack at 5,000 feet, I mean, the final approach altitude is either 3,800 or 3,500. So help us understand how that works.
Yeah, I think they would still, and Timon, you can speak up too, but basically it'd just be like you'd have a slot into the stack. And so instructors or other non-aware of the Stanfield stack would probably operate in a similar fashion, at least get on CTAF, start communicating. People would see them, either visually or on ADSB below them and work down through this, either the stack altitudes or working with the other ones that are on the approach ahead. So the option,
Okay.
the benefit is it just provides them like a slot in the line that they can jump into without colliding with another aircraft.
Timon, what does that clearance sound like to an IFR aircraft? If you're saying they can come in to Stanfield at a certain altitude and then basically do whatever they want between there and the final approach altitude.
So I think the idea with those is, well, it would just be 5,000 that would be the approach altitude. The 7,000 would be for IFR overflight traffic to resolve any conflicts we have now with that. The 5,000 would be the approach clearance altitude. And I think the idea was we do a letter to airmen that would basically point to the Stanfield stack procedures. And that would be published, in a NOTAM, and the pilot in their pre-flight would look at that and at least be able to preview the procedures.
Gotcha.
And then as they come in and get the clearance from Albuquerque Center, they'd enter the stack at 5,000, make their calls. If anyone is there at 4,500 or on approach already VFR below them, they would be expected to hold and descend in the stack until it's their turn and kind of wait their turn for a little bit and integrate themselves with the VFR traffic, not just jump the line. But that's obviously assuming that everybody, does as they're supposed to with the LTA and the NOTAMs and
it's a big assumption.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, an IFR aircraft can be cleared for an approach. I know you just clear them. Would you say cleared for an approach, or do you need to clear them for the ILS, the RNAV GPS, or the VOR? What's actually required?
You can technically say cleared approach Casa Grande Airport, and it would allow
Let's say we just
to
keep it
do any
general.
one of those, but they all generally originate at Stanfield anyways. So our controllers basically 10 times out of 10 will be the clearance will be cross Stanfield at 5,000 cleared ILS runway 5 approach Casa Grande Airport, or it might be at or above 4,500 cleared ILS runway 5, because that's our MIA at Stanfield. We have to be above the terrain there.
Got it. And so just to make sure I understand, an IFR aircraft can get that clearance. They can remain IFR, radar service terminated, and it's okay for them to do several circuits in the hold on their way to the runway. That's what we're saying. And they're IFR the whole time.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. So from the DP point of view, I just wanted to share a couple things. First of all, the ACS changed significantly a few years ago, as most of you know. And before that change, the ILS approach was critical for a check ride. And we were very limited on what counted for the quote unquote precision approach. The FAA has really muddied the waters with the definition of precision and non-precision. We appreciate the increased flexibility that we have with the current instrument ACS. I prefer to just say that the current requirements are we need to do one approach to a DA and 2 different approaches to an MDA. And that has opened up a lot of flexibility and basically made it so that we don't need the Stanfield stack as much as we did just a few years ago. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. I mean, the airspace all around Phoenix is saturated. I mean, looking at the numbers, the amount of flight training that's going on, I know there's not a lot of approaches that are not getting utilized. But I also suspect that maybe a lot of the schools and instructors are just going to Stanfield because that's what they've always done. And maybe part of this initiative can be just not going there. Certainly, the AFTW recommends to everyone, please, for the training lessons, please do not include Casa Grande in an IFR flight plan. There's plenty of other options. The AFTW does not have the authority. The FAA does not have the authority to prevent instructors or flight schools from doing that. But please, for all that is good and holy, just don't do it. And instructors need to understand that to meet the requirements of the instrument training, whether it's Part 61 or 141, the requirement's very clear that you need to be IFR for the entire instrument approach. So canceling IFR on the IFR cross country before doing the approach does not count. And as a DP, I've just learned not to ask the question because I don't want to know. But instructors need to understand you got to stay IFR until you finish the approach. And that means in VMC, you got to go all the way to minimums, IFR. If you go missed and then cancel, that's fine, but you got to meet the requirements. So that's another thing from a DP point of view that everyone needs to understand here. We got to realize this is not just flight schools. I mean, we see single engine, multi-engine, turboprop aircraft. We see King Airs and small jets and helicopters. I don't see, and I think Stacy was basically saying the same things, not just all the changes it would take, but any of these that you have us lined up on, or any of these ideas to line us up at the same altitude, I don't see how that could work. I mean, even just a Cirrus and a 172, I don't see how we're going to match the speeds and keep the. I think we're just going to take all of the risk that we have today, and we're just going to have at least as much risk of someone getting rear-ended because we're all at the same altitude. So I'm with Stacy. I just don't see how that could work. Another one from the DP point of view, it's important that everyone understand that from a testing point of view, we have to do FAA official instrument approaches. You guys remember back in the day, we had the ILS up north of Luke, great for training. Can't do that on a check ride. It has to be an official FAA approach. So even if we came up with something like moving the stack, and that's great for practice, it's great for training, but on check ride day, we got to do the published approach. So now we add complexity like, oh, here's the training group that's staying out of the way. And then now here's the testing group that is required to follow the published FAA approach plates. And then we got the real IFR traffic. Like we just added so much complexity. And I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm just throwing cold water on all your ideas. I guess what I'm saying is let's be careful to not just change all the risk and it's still just as risky. Like, sure. What did we gain?
Yeah.
So that's it for now. Thank you.
Just to follow up on it, Timon, did you, I remember you were talking with us about it is possible to add this fix or this hold fix onto the approaches into Casa Grande. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I do know it's possible. The time frame on that stuff is like, it blows my mind how long stuff, okay, like little simple stuff like that takes. And I've made requests before, and then it's like, it's frustrating. It's a big bureaucracy, but we can, as soon as if we want to go down that path and say we really need a fix here, we can put in for that and try to expedite it as fast as possible. But it's probably going to be a long time.
Okay, thanks.
And to Jim, yeah, can you speak maybe a little bit more to like, because when I think about moving the stack to the south there, from my mind, it seems pretty straightforward. If you just mimic the procedures you're doing in the stack now, but shift it south, to empty your airspace, basically. You get to the bottom of the stack and then you fly basically what's the published procedure, because it begins at Stanfield and ends at the, Casco Airport or your MDA or whatever. So it doesn't seem like that shouldn't be that big of a change for everybody. We're just trying to move it to some place safer, and that would hopefully alleviate, there's still obviously going to be conflictions with potential IFR and VFR traffic there, but at least they're not in the same spot at the same time, by nature. At least it feels like it gives them a chance to say, okay, I'm here, and give everybody a little bit of heads up so they can kind of integrate themselves at Stanfield as they enter that same area.
Again, it would be fine for practice and training. The AFTW, we could make some really pretty non-official VFR procedures that allow people to, do the hold entries and practice and all the kind of skill building stuff. On the day of the check ride, if I needed to do all 3 required approaches here with this procedure, that new red part would only work for 2 of them, because one of the what the FAA calls non-precision approaches has to be flown from the initial approach fix without the use of autopilot and include a procedure turn, basically. And so we would have to do the official published approach for at least one of them. And I just, trying to imagine how we would make that.
Because you could.
Sorry, and that would be done
Stanfield's
fully
initial,
IFR?
No. We can simulate the IFR part of it. We
Okay.
just, the way I do it is we pretend that the pilot being tested is on an IFR flight. I'm ATC for them using proper IFR verbiage and clearances and everything. And then I'm doing the real radios outside talking to the stack. And, each DP has the freedom to do that however they want, but I think most people are doing it that way. Hopefully that's what the AFTW recommends. But for at least one of the approaches, we got to do the full procedure turn for it to count. Now, maybe it just doesn't happen here. Maybe we have to go to Coolidge or Chandler or Falcon or wherever to get that third approach. But I just hope everyone understands that is a specific requirement in the ACS.
Okay, we have Brian and Alex that have their hands up.
Yep. Go ahead, Alex. I think you've had your hand up the longest.
I mean, but in addition to that, to Jim's point, that increases the complexity of the test for the student severely. And so again, safety obviously supersedes that, right? But the holding fix itself isn't the issue. It's the after part, like Jim said, that is going to be the challenge. So thank you.
And not only would we have to have an allowance for a DP on a test, but then the only fair thing to do is to give applicants a chance to practice what they're going to do on their test. And, I always encourage schools that have good simulators to use the simulators. But how do we differentiate, here's an instructor helping someone get ready for their check ride next week, so they're doing the published procedure versus everyone else who's doing the VFR procedure. Is like, and then how do you know they're being honest about it? Like you said earlier, it's like, I don't know. I don't see how that's going to work.
Brian, do you have a question, or is your hand just came down, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we could, Jim, I see your point about doing the procedure turn, but we could, with communication, if we're holding south of Stanfield there, we could tell them, hey, we're on a check ride, and then head up to Stanfield, do the procedure turn, and shoot the approach that way. So that way we're at least minimizing the time that we're doing the published hold, and I think that would still work for a check ride.
It absolutely could. Again, it just adds complexity. You got 8 people in the call it the new stack, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's a check ride, or here's someone practicing for a check ride, and everyone needs to understand what that means.
Do you think that there would be, does the group think that there would be issues with if we forego, I think it was 5,000 and 7,000 at the stack, do you think people would be aware of that? Like, I worry about using incorrect altitude than just reverting to our primacy and everybody, doing what they've done for years.
Valid concerns. As the last standing original member of the AFTW, I think it was 2002. The challenge that we've had from day one is getting the word out to the people who need to hear it. And to make a big change like this, I mean, we could spend the next 5 years doing nothing but outreach and still just get a percentage of the people that need to hear this. That's how I feel. And I hate to sound so cynical, but it is a big challenge to really get everyone educated and on the same page. And the hazards that will happen in the meantime, I don't know if it'll be any safer than it is with the see and avoid we're trying to do now.
Cool. Thanks for the inputs. Other questions, comments?
I mean, I think we could, publish a NOTAM that speaks specifically to that, or the LTA would address it, that it might say in the NOTAM page, 5,000, 7,000 over Stanfield are sterilized for IFR use at Casa Grande. And hopefully, if you're flying a flight plan to Casa Grande, VFR or IFR, you're looking at your NOTAMs and reading that line. And hopefully that might help spread the word as fast as possible. But
you would hope. Unfortunately,
I do
reality
understand
shows
that,
different.
Yeah. I think the bigger issue with that is just eliminating those two altitudes from the stack, and where do those planes end up? And if the stop of the stack is utilized, they just fly around a circle somewhere else until a spot opens up. When there's multiple people competing for that spot, where do they go?
Carrie, go ahead.
I think option B is probably the best that we've got. I'm concerned about the getting the track, both the north and the south, going into the south practice area there. The south track, I'm concerned because it takes us right across I-10, and we've got all those I follow road pilots that will go right through there as well. So I think that's a danger. And the other thing I was really curious about was the comment that Albuquerque sees IFR traffic every 90 to 120 minutes going into Stanfield. Who's doing that? Do we know who's doing that? Because I can't imagine Casa Grande by itself supports that type of traffic. So it sounds like it's other people that are gaming the system, filing IFR into Stanfield, that is creating a lot of our problems here.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that for a second. I think it's the vast majority of those, probably 80%, terminate their IFR services prior to Stanfield.
And are those
the ones who don't are put
training?
into that imminent conflict situation if they're flying the whole thing IFR. And I think we're doing a disservice to the whole system because they're conceivably not flying the whole procedure IFR because it is dangerous. They would prefer to actually have an IFR flight plan, keep it open, as Jim said, actually, uphold the full test, and either go to the citizen height or land there to get their certifications or actually get full training out of it. But they're having to terminate that flight plan prior to Stanfield to feel like to remain safe in the air.
And real quick, Tim, and just to clarify what I was talking about, the requirement to stay IFR, that's a training requirement before the test, before the check ride, just in case we have any other non-pilot ATC or any non-pilots watching this. So during training, there's one day that they need to do an IFR cross country, and they need to be IFR through a minimum of 3 approaches at least 2 different airports. So on the actual day of the test, we can do everything VFR and simulate the IFR. We just have certain boxes we got to check to get everything done.
Right?
Is there no way to get ATC services from Albuquerque? And, if we put this stack at a different fix, north, south, whatever it is, we call up Albuquerque from there and you clear us for the approach, just like you would any IFR airplane, and you clear us to cross Stanfield at 5,000, and then we shoot the approach. And then the next one goes, and the next one goes after that. So rather than self-sequencing and mixing this VFR, IFR, could we utilize any sort of ATC service there?
I would say the volume is way too high. Unfortunately, it's just out of the workload and the scope of Albuquerque Center. We on our I've talked about this in our other meetings. Like on that sector, basically, I see from Phoenix, north of Phoenix, all the way down to the Mexico border. So it's about 130 miles north and south and 80 miles wide or so. So working individual VFR aircraft into and around Stanfield is incredibly difficult, if not impossible. It's basically impossible to provide better services than you guys can provide yourself on CTAF and deconflicting yourselves.
A second order of effect is if we reserve 5,000, then we're going to file for it, and you're going to see an increase of people going there under your control.
That was one of the risks I put in here.
Because right now, I'll drop with you before I get there so I don't get violated. But if I know I can stay on with you, then I'll stay on with you and in essence get a reserved slot at 5,000.
Yeah, so Stacy, I would say we'd love to take that responsibility on or slightly increase workload to mitigate all the safety situations there. And from my perspective, the workload is very similar actually, because if you file a IFR flight plan to Casa Grande, then I have to solicit that you have the weather. I have to look up the NOTAMs, make sure there's anything new. If there is, read it to you, or you tell me I have all the NOTAMs. I have to preemptively coordinate with Phoenix Approach to get a block of the airspace from them before I issue an approach clearance. And then I would issue the approach clearance. As it stands now, what happens a lot of times, I do all of that workload. I issue the approach clearance, and then 30 seconds later, you terminate IFR. And then IFR cancellation received, squawk 1200, change to advisory frequencies approved. I call Phoenix back and say, hey, Phoenix, airspace is yours. So it's basically the same amount of workload for me. And so you tying up the airport, going in their IFR the whole way, it's fine. And from a safety perspective, I think it increases the safety substantially.
The other effect that you're going to run into, Stacy, is if you have multiple aircraft trying to do this, the first one's going to hold the reservation until they're complete with the approach. The other one's going to have to be forced into holding at the stack at 7, and the stack will just continue to grow as people show up waiting in line, and that'll be another after effect.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to clear that guy at 7 until the guy at 5 finishes the approach, parks, pick up the phone, and calls you and cancels.
Yep.
If he remembers.
Yes. So
If he
it may
remembers.
be inefficient to be done that often, because the airport does get tied up for so long, especially if the IFR aircraft is having to do a couple laps in the hold first, waiting for the VFR aircraft below them to turn inbound. So it might not be that much more efficient to fly IFR the entire way, or jump the line.
Cool. We're coming up to end of our scheduled time, but does anybody else have any other remaining questions before we move to close the agenda?
So the easiest way to have ongoing communication with this between now and the next meeting is going to be our Facebook group. We recognize it's not perfect. Not everyone is on Facebook, but it's the best we got right now. So if you guys haven't yet, please join the Facebook group. We'll post this presentation there. Let's have some ongoing discussion there. Obviously keep it respectful and professional. And it is a private group. We work hard to keep people out. So if you haven't joined yet, be sure to answer the questions so that we can get you in there. And look forward to getting everyone's feedback and input on this important item. Thank you again, Brent. This is a great discussion.
Yeah.
And just like what Jim said, it's an auto reject if you don't fill out the questions on the Facebook group.
Okay.
Brian Eckman from T90.
Hey, just one second. I know you're running out of time, but I wanted to jump
T90.
on. Somebody in the FAA saw the March AFTW meeting and was forwarded to myself and my ATM. It was a jump operations question. It was somebody out of Ryan. They're frustrated with the jumpers taking over the airspace and they don't know who to contact. I just wanted to jump on here. If any of you guys are out flight training, flying through the area, have safety concerns with jump operations in the area, please call our facility on phone. Do not hesitate to do that. I wish there was more we could do as a facility to make things safer, but the more people that are raising awareness, the more people that are calling our facility with concerns, that will all get turned into a mandatory occurrence report because it's public inquiry and it'll get more eyes on the problem. If any of you guys see the jump operations expanding outside of the airport environments down here as a safety issue, please do not hesitate to call us if you encounter that. So thank you guys.
Okay. All right. I think that I don't know if there's any updates on the frequency project or Jim, your the practice instrument approach project.
No updates from
Okay.
me. Everyone will have access. If you're watching this recording on YouTube, look down in the description of the YouTube video. We have the link to this Google Doc that you're on right now, which gives everyone easy access to everything that you've shown here today. Go check it out.
Thanks. And Lee, I don't know if you have any updates with the frequency project.
We're fine tuning it. Stacy Carey and I and the work group, Jim Anderson and Brian Stamper, we're about there, I hope, for submission. And then we wait.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks,
All right.
Brent.
Well, thanks everybody for your attendance. Again, throw your email in the chat if you need to get credit. Next AFTW meeting will be July 14th, and you can check out the next meeting to register on AFTW's website. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Brent.